There's a star that lights the road. I take this ride. Just drive. I wanna be the only one to make it to the light. I take it to the edge where I live 1,000 lives. Or maybe I could be the one. I'll ride into the setting sun tonight. Just drive.
Well, hello and welcome from what is now a very dark paddock here in Bahrain. The first day of the second test is over and tomorrow marks the halfway point of the pre-season testing. And if you just look over there to the Red Bull garage, you'll see a couple of people stood around having a chat. That seems to have been the main theme down at Red Bull today. People standing around having a chat, some scratching their heads and some with a worried look on their faces as to just what is going wrong with the current drivers and constructors champions. If I was to tell you that Sebastian Vettel put in only 14 laps today, I would not be lying. 3 hours and 42 minutes before the session ended was when he first took to the track, and he brought about a red flag as well. It's a strange day, actually. We started half an hour late because there weren't enough marshals out on the circuit, so we all got here on time, but sadly not all of the marshals did. And when we got here, what do we see? But a whole load of floodlights. I don't know if you can just pick those out for us, Pete, but underneath those little red lights are the floodlights, because Bahrain is going to be a night race for the first time ever here in the Kingdom of Bahrain. And if I look at my clock now, yeah, we're about 5 minutes into the race. Well, might be a little bit lighter than this because, of course, we'll be here in April. We've got to be prepared for a dusk and a twilight race here at Bahrain, and very different conditions for the race this year. It's actually quite windy, has been all day, and it's got a bit cold as well, to be fair. I'm kind of wondering why I rolled my sleeves up on this one, but I've rolled my sleeves up a bit earlier to get down to work and answer some questions. It's hashtag Ask Crofty all this week in testing. Whatever testing question is burning away at the back of your brain, well, feel free to tweet us. Use the hashtag Ask Crofty, and we will do our best to answer as many questions as we possibly can. Like Jake Roberts Jones, who's tweeted us, should Red Bull Racing be worried after their Jerez misery and delayed start to Bahrain testing? Well, if they weren't worried before today, I think they're going to be worried now. For whatever reason, and I think there were several reasons, they started late and they only put in 14 laps. It's not what you want. Sebastian Vettel was talking afterwards saying, look, you know, we don't know where we are in relation to everybody else. We've not even begun to start on our performance yet. It could be that we're in not a bad place once we can get the car running. So he's still being optimistic, but I think there'll be a few people at Renault, the engine supplier, and at Red Bull thinking, right, how do we put these problems right? And as I say, there were many problems, one of which was the code for the Red Bull engine. There was a coding problem, so it just wasn't working properly. And the other being the cooling package, the overheating problems that plague the Jerez test. Now, I'm told that today Sebastian Vettel stopping out on track wasn't an overheating issue, but that's no official comment from the team. That's just my source from within Red Bull. Anyway, are they worried? I think they probably should be. BKKF1 says, how confident are Red Bull and Renault that this will be a good testing week for them? Well, I think coming to Bahrain, they were very confident that they could at least get the issue sorted. But with a 5 hour or so delay at the start of today, that confidence was soon draining away. It was really interesting, actually. We're just outside Mercedes at the moment, but outside the Red Bull motorhome, on these little tables and chairs that all the teams have, and this elderly fan has come to the to come and say hello. Let's just see if we can't have a quick chat to Nicky Lauda as we're live on air. Nicky, have you got 2 questions for Sky Sports F1 for us?
Yes.
It's not. Well, we were talking about Red Bull. And I wouldn't imagine you at Mercedes want to swap places with them at the moment, do you?
Well, I'm happy at Mercedes, to be honest, but nevertheless, these are initial problems an engine manufacturer can have. Mercedes was running very hard the last months or so to get the engine where it is today. Ferrari, I think, did a good job too. Renault is a little bit behind, but don't worry, they will catch up.
You've been around this game for a long, long time. At what stage do you expect Red Bull and Renault to catch up? When we get to Melbourne, or will it take a few races?
No, when you only get to Melbourne, they will be there. I'm afraid.
You're afraid?
Yeah.
Don't be afraid. You've had a good day.
I prefer I will be the only one there, but I think everybody else will catch up.
Nicky Lauda, afraid. That could be an exclusive tonight. Thanks ever so much, Nicky. Great to see you. Either way, as I was saying, at Red Bull, earlier on today, Jean-Michel Gelinier, who is the head of Renault F1 Sports, he's the engine man, was in deep conversation. We could call it a big F1 summit, if you like, with Christian Horner and also with Dr. Helmut Marko, who's the man in charge of the Red Bull Driver Development Performance Programme. And there were some very stern faces. They were sat right out the front in full view of the media that have made the trip here to Bahrain and having quite a chat and quite a powwow as well. What will come of that, we don't know, but at least they actually got sort of 14 or so laps in. Talking of Renault engines, Franz Tost. Franz, have you got 2 seconds? No, Franz Tost has not got 2 seconds. Probably aligned to the fact that Toro Rosso, like Red Bull, had a really bad day today. Danny Kvyat down in the timings and not putting a huge amount of laps in. They, like Red Bull, were stuck in the garage for a long, long time this morning. So, will it be a good week? It says BKK F1. It hasn't started well. I suppose it can only get better from here. Anders CJA, do you think Red Bull will be looking to change engine suppliers for next season if Renault's issues continue? Interestingly, Dr. Helmut Marko was quoted in Bild in the German newspaper recently saying that we've got a long-term partnership with Renault. We're working together as one to try and fix the issues. But... and there is a big but here, he did say there are performance clauses in that engine contract. So on the one hand, look, we're working together as a team. On the other hand, there are performance clauses in that contract. Watch this space with interest as the season goes on. James J. Rimmer, good evening to you. He says, Caterham F1 have done by far the most Renault-powered laps. Is this, as it seems, far more open at the back than the RB10? Well, from what I've seen, and looking at the cars for the first time, it was quite an eye-opener to see all the noses and the centrally exiting exhaust and the new front wings, which of course are 75 millimetres narrower on either side of the front wing end plates. It really was quite a strange sight. These cars look nothing like they did last year. There is a much bigger cooling package on that Caterham, which has served them well because they've got a lot of laps in today with Robin Freins, who was in the car today. And yeah, cooling options, great, you can run the car, but you want to get it as neatly packaged as possible for the aerodynamic gain. And this is Adrian Newey's conundrum, isn't it? How far can you push the cooling and the increased demands on cooling that these current cars have got and sacrifice the aero as well? And there was a lot of rumours going around the F1 paddock this morning that he'd just sacrificed far too much of the cooling and he'd ignored the main issues, which is the overheating. Either way, they had a good day down at Caterham and they got a lot of laps in. Critchley Sean, good evening to you. Are the power units running on full power, he says? And do you think we'll see quicker times? Now, here's interesting. We asked Lewis Hamilton this. Have you cranked it up to full power yet? And he said, no, we haven't. And then someone said, why not? He said, because we don't need to yet. On average, I think we're running at about 85 to 90% of full power so far. I was talking to a very leading figure from one of the engine manufacturers who says that, look, nobody quite knows the full details. We know what we're doing, but we don't know what everyone else is doing. This is a competition, of course, and no one is going to give hints to their competitors as to how strong or how weak they are at the moment. But the main thing, he says, is that before we get to Melbourne, we will be running at full power. We'll need to run at full power because we'll need to see just how hot these engines get and how the cooling issues are affected by it. So at some stage here, be it in this test or in the final test, which is where we expect most of the big aerodynamic upgrades to come, we will see engines running on full power. And Nico Hülkenberg's time today of a 1:36.8, the fastest time, was 2.4 seconds slower than the fastest P1 time from last year. So we're getting nearer. And don't forget, of course, we don't know what tyres these cars are running on all the time when they set their best time. In Hülkenberg's case, I do. It was soft tyres today, and there's about a 3/4 of a second difference as you step closer to the super soft tyres. But we'll see them, the engines, the power units, as we should call them, running on full power. We just haven't seen it yet. Or maybe we have and we just don't know. Hashtag Ask Crofty. Matteo Skiluna, can you explain to us which of the noses creates the best downforce? Please answer, and thanks a lot. Oh, there's a good question. First time I've seen the noses. Can't say I like them. Thank you very much to Sauber for changing their nose. The gentleman's appendage has really gone from the Sauber now, and it's a lot fatter and a bit less droopier as well. And it's the way that the nose kind of directs the airflow and then reacts with the rear of the car. That's what the engineers are all working on at the moment. Yes, they've been realigned and they've dropped down lower for safety reasons, but it's all about directing that airflow, you know, around and underneath the car and making best use of it at the rear. So that's the main key there that the engineers and the technicians are working on. Personally, I don't mind the noses too much. I don't think that they're going to be a major issue as the season goes on. First time, as I say, I've seen them myself today. First time I've heard the cars in full as well and live in the flesh, and boy, do they sound different. They all left the pit lane this morning. Romain Grosjean in the Lotus, as we're here outside Lotus at the moment, was the first car to exit the pits. And as the train of cars came down the pit lane, it kind of sounded to me like an old blues singer, like an 80-year-old blues singer in Chicago who was trying to clear his throat. They were quite raspy, and it was a very strange sound. On the straight itself, not as loud, has to be said. I didn't need earplugs today, and that's not because my hearing is going, because I had a hearing test about 2 weeks ago, so I'm fine in that respect. But they certainly weren't as loud, and they were a much different sound. And when they lift the drivers at the end of a straight and they coast towards the corner, it goes very, very quiet indeed. What's happening here? Romain Grosjean is having a little session. Is that 2 questions that I can have with you, Monsieur Grosjean? How are you?
Yeah, you got me on that one.
Here's a first question for you then, and I said that I would ask every single person we were talking to, what is 3 cubed?
That is probably a podium.
It's 3 podiums, kind of like your season last year. No, 3 cubed, 3 times 3 times 3. It's a simple maths question. Do you know the answer?
27?
See, Ted Kravitz, you're an absolute dunce. Romain Grosjean knows the answer. You're the only person that didn't know this. 27 is the correct answer. Well done. Tell me about your day today in the meantime.
Not 27 laps, unfortunately. Only 7 started well. Yeah. It was interesting to jump back in the car. I think the most surprising thing is the noise, that we hear the wind through the helmet in the straight line, and the more the noise of the engine, you need to get used to it. But nothing too crazy in the car in terms of driving and handling. That's a good start, and some issues that we didn't do as many laps as we wish, but yeah, so far so good.
Answer this question for me. Hashtag Ask Crofty. This is what the viewers want to know. Can we still see true racing this season, given that drivers have to manage engines, fuel, tyres? Can you just be allowed to drive, or are you just driving and racing? Is it pure racing, do you think?
Well, I think it's racing. It's not racing 100% every time. I think we just have to wait to see how it goes, and how we can do management of fuel and so on. So far, the rules has been quite strict and far away, so we are all a bit scared, but I think we still have to drive a Formula 1 car as quick as we can with what we have in our hands, and yes, it's still racing.
Excellent. Hope you have a few more laps. Are you in the car tomorrow?
Yes, I am.
Excellent. Good luck. At least 16 would be nice from you, but I assume it'd be a bit more. Sorry, twice, 2-8. You see? Well, 8 squared would be 64, but 2 8s are 16 as we carry on the maths lesson. Thanks, Roman. Really sorry, Mr. Stobart, that we just gate crashed your media conference there. It'll certainly cost me a couple of beers later. Thank you very much, gentlemen. So that's Lotus. They were out on the track today. A few issues, but Romain Grosjean is smiling, and that's good to see. Talking of Lotus, their former team principal, Eric Boulier, was here today. In fact, I flew over with him. We came out overnight on the Gulf Air flight, and as prepared as we were, we hadn't filled out our little visa form when we got to the airport. So I said to Eric, I'm the journalist here, I haven't got a pen. Could you lend me a pen? Eric, of course, is now the racing director at McLaren, and he handed me a lovely Lotus pen. So he just can't let go of his old team on that one. And we'll try and catch up with him at some stage during the course of this test, because he's not spoken yet since he went and joined McLaren, but he is very happy there and has said that he will come and have a little chat to us. So anyway, that's Romain Grosjean, that's Niki Lauda, and that's hashtag Ask Crofty for the time being. Keep your tweets coming in, please, as many as you possibly can, and we'll try and answer your testing tweets, hashtag Ask Crofty, every single night of the week here on Sky Sports F1. What we'll do after the break is tell you exactly what happened on the track today, because quite a bit did. Welcome back to the paddock here at the Sakir International Circuit in Bahrain, and I've just got to keep my voice down a little bit because, Pete, over your shoulder, just have a little look here, Felipe Massa is talking to the assembled media. Is that... It is. It's Rachel Brooks from Sky Sports News and Guyton from Belgian television as well, and I think one of the German reporters firing questions along the lines of, what did you do today? And Felipe is saying, well, I played Scrabble, I played Battleships, and I could have had a really long game of Cluedo as well. Because they did 5 laps, Williams, sadly, and didn't set a time either. Valtteri Bottas over there. We might just go and doorstep that conversation in a minute and have a quick conversation. But they found a problem with the fuel cell system, or a problem with the fuel system itself. Changed a few components and then realised they actually had to remove the power unit to try and resolve the problem. And the thing about removing power units at the moment, it is not the work of a moment. It takes quite a while, and basically the car was sat in the garage for pretty much most of the day whilst they took the power unit out and then got to the fuel cell, sorted out the problem and got it back out on track again. But as I said, 5 laps for Felipe Massa, and he didn't complete a timed lap. Now, I did actually ask the team, is this a worry? Power units taking so long to change? And they said, well, no, at the moment you've not got the full race team here. You know, it's a test, and things take a little bit longer at the test. By the time we get to Melbourne, we've got the full complement of people in the garage. We should be able to get these power units changed an awful lot quicker. Because, of course, what we don't want to see is an issue in, say, free practice 3 on the Saturday morning in Melbourne, and then a car not go out for qualifying because they can't change that unit in time. Who's sneaking up the back here? It's not a problem, boys. You've had a hard day. You can sneak back for supper time. I think the lovely Joe is cooking up some pasta in the Williams garage. But it's been a really good winter for Williams, and a brand new sponsor, of course, associated with Felipe Massa, the Brazilian petrol company, announced just a few weeks ago. And you might have seen a few tweets today of what could be the livery for the car for the 2014 season. And we might just be raising a glass to a retro livery to come for Williams. That's it, Pete. Get in there. Let's have a listen, see what he's saying.
Big motivation as well. So I think it's something that I wanted to do, you know.
All right, okay, Pete, we're not listening anymore. Okay, that's Felipe Massa anyway. We'll have a chat to him. He wasn't the most inactive driver today. Jules Bianchi down at Marussia, big problems for them as well. Only 3 laps for the Marussia team, and along with Williams, the only other team not to record a timed lap today. Romain Grosjean, we've already spoken to down at Lotus, only 8 laps for himself. A time of 1:44.8 was his best time, but at least the Lotus is here, and at least it's running, and they're getting their season off and running, as it were. And Daniel Kvyat, we should say, 1:44.3, his best time. Only 5 laps for him in the Toro Rosso as well. See more conversations there as the night shift arrived down at Toro Rosso. And I think the fact they only did 5 laps today and had issues, engine and aero issues once again, probably proves why Franz Tost was not overly happy in part 1 and didn't want to speak to us. What's Adrian Sutil talking about?
Do you like switching one day, or some teams prefer to do the same driver 2 days together?
He's being asked if he likes to do more than 2 days in a row.
Okay, yes, and now I'm working today, and then for the last day, I don't think it's bad, so I can have a look tomorrow. Everything is working.
I'm just going to move him. He said he doesn't really mind too much at Sauber, the way that they rotate their drivers and what's happening there. What he does mind, I think, at the moment is the new brake-by-wire that the drivers are trying to get used to. And, of course, Sauber had issues with that in Jerez, and I think they had issues today as well. One of the red flags that we saw in the test today was caused by Adrian Sutil locking up over Pete's shoulder way towards the tower to the hairpin at turn 1, where he locked up and then corrected the car and then sent the car into a spin. It's a tailwind that the drivers have had to face going down the straight. There's a headwind on turn 9 and 10, which has caused a lot of locking up as well. But I think the wind wasn't the problem with Adrian Sutil today. It was the brake-by-wire issue, and so it brought out a red flag, and he found himself going a long way off into the runoff area. But he was still 6th fastest, and he still got 82 laps in that Sauber today. So when he wasn't having a few issues with the brakes, he was at least getting some decent running in, as was as we look at a few of the Pirelli tyres, and we will be talking tyres with Paul Hembry from Pirelli in the next couple of days on Sky Sports F1. Talking of long running today, Robin Frijns, what a super run he put in the Caterham. 68 laps in total in what was his last day in the car before the season starts. 1:42.5 left him 7th fastest in the times. Forklift truck, that is not the new nose for 2015. That is just a forklift truck going all the way to Marussia. Force India. All is quiet at Force India at the moment, but they might have a smile on their face behind the screens if we were allowed to look in. Nico Hülkenberg on the soft tyres, fastest man of the day, and they put 78 laps in as well. A time of 1:36.8 for Nico Hülkenberg, which, if you look at the best time in FP1 here last year, a 1:34.4 by Felipe Massa. So it was, 2.4 seconds off that time. That's not bad, considering what we were seeing in Jerez. And from what I'm being told in the paddock, yes, the cars are slower at the moment, but no, the power units are not been running at full pace. And when we get to Melbourne, we'll see sensitive times that are very much on a par with what we were seeing last year in Formula One.
Right, who have we not mentioned so far? Well, Sebastian Vettel was 5th fastest in 14 laps, as we discussed. And here we are at McLaren. Warwick organising the boys. And a little visitor there from Mercedes. Kevin Magnussen. Let's talk about Kevin Magnussen. What a super day for him. 1:38.2. He was 4th fastest overall, 81 laps, more reliability from McLaren, who had a lot of sensors on their front wing. So maybe trying a little F-duct system on that front wing. But whatever they've been doing in the winter seems to have worked. No real gossip about the rear suspension that caused such a stir at Jerez. But I think people are starting to take McLaren very seriously at the moment, and I wonder, could they be adding a 9th Constructors' World Championship to the list of laurel wreaths on the side of their garage? They're certainly in a very good shape at the moment. You think Mercedes looking good with their reliability. You think McLaren looking good with reliability and pace as well. And you also think Ferrari looking pretty handy. Fernando Alonso, a 1:37.8 today, 64 laps from him. When he left the pits for the first time today, there's a huge plume of smoke that was coming out the back of the Ferrari, and a trail of oil that he left down in the pit lane, which was either something had been overfilled, or there was a little leak, or something had just got ingested into the power unit that shouldn't have been there, and of course it gets kicked out. There's no way that anything that shouldn't be in there can now live within the power unit. But he then stopped out on the track, and that was Ferrari's biggest problem. After that, seemed to go very well for them indeed. So 2nd fastest for Fernando Alonso today with a 1:37.8. For Lewis Hamilton, a 1:37.9. 74 laps from him, another comfortable race distance for Lewis Hamilton, which is why Niki Lauda, who was speaking to us earlier, was saying, they're in a really good place at the moment, and Lewis in a really good place at the moment. And it's the first time I'd spoken to Lewis Hamilton since Brazil last year, and the first thing that struck me was how much weight has that man lost, looking an awful lot thinner in the face, and not just Lewis Hamilton as well. Max Chilton looking an awful lot thinner. Eric Boulier looking sort of thinner. Can we talk to you tomorrow, or have you got time for one question now?
Tomorrow?
Tomorrow would be nice. But Kevin Magnussen, just tell us what you thought of his performance today.
I think he's doing a very, very good job. You can see he's consistent, and he's fast on one lap. And he doesn't have a lot of experience in Formula One, so he's still learning. So now he's doing a very, very good job.
That's exactly what I said. I'm glad you backed me up on that. We'll talk tomorrow. Thanks ever so much, Eric. Cheers. Eric Boulier, now wearing the grey of McLaren, or the silver grey of McLaren, and eventually it'll match his hair and mine, I'm sure. But no, I was just talking about driver's weight. Lewis Hamilton's lost weight, and Max Chilton's lost weight. They've all lost a bit of weight. And I was speaking to Daniel Ricciardo today, who said he's dropped 5 kilos from the back end of last season to the weight he's at now, and there's probably still another kilo to go. He then looked at his watch and said, it's lunchtime. And I suggested lettuce and kiwi, but he said he was an Aussie, so kiwi would not be on the menu for him. Let's hope that when he gets into the car, he can sweat a bit and get some miles in, because that's what Red Bull need at the moment. Miles and kilometres around the track. They cannot afford another day like today when we come back for day 2 of the pre-season test here at Bahrain. And after tomorrow, we're at the halfway stage of pre-season testing, so they've got to find some performance as well.